Hello, I am still Alexis Kennedy, and this is still me saying in a dramatic voice, the game is on fire. After a botched update to Cultist Simulator, a much beloved game of 4 years vintage, I spent the last indefinite period of a million years putting out patch after patch. So the game is now largely no longer on fire. It's sort of bits of smoke coming out, and it's in pretty good shape. But I've been tracking down a couple of game-breaking, horrible bugs with the help of the community, thank you. And a gentleman called Technomage on the Steam forums finally gave me production steps for this one. And I suspect when I go into my issues tracker, I'm going to see a couple of other people also came up, so I don't want to steal credit from you. Thank you all anyway, everybody gave me clues towards this. So, this is a disappearing cards bug. Cards disappearing in Cultist Simulator is freaking awful. One, because it makes the game hard. Two, because part of the game is working out what the game is and what's going on. So if you don't know whether the card's supposed to have disappeared or not, that can cause misery and confusion. Most basic interaction in Cultist Simulator, I'm going to do a job. I'm going to fast forward the job. And when the job is done, I'm going to hit collect. And you'll notice one of the new cards I gained went to the card drop zone. And the existing card, the one I put in the verb, went back to where it started, even though it's changed its condition. And the drop zone is a relatively recent innovation. I mean, it's relatively recent. I think I got Chris, who was a contractor working with us at the time, to put it in about 6 months after the game had launched, because initially the cards just sort of went wherever they thought was useful. Really much requested to be able to say, I want all the new cards to go to a particular place, like here or here. But of course, if you have a board set up with your funds and your health and your jobs and your law all over the place, you want to make sure that when you've done whatever you're doing with them in the verb, they go back to where they started. This is one of the other things that's slightly broken in the update, is sometimes under some circumstances they prefer the drop zone, or they didn't go back to where they started. And the logic in Cultist Simulator for card home locations works like this. If you pick up a card, and if you try to put it somewhere that it can't go, well, it can go anywhere at the moment because the freaking placement algorithm is being a bit weird. But okay, if you pick up the card, let's try this, and then the card has to go home, then it will go back to the location that you last picked it up from. Fine. On the assumption that the last location that you picked it up from is probably where you want it to be. Fun fact, doesn't actually preserve this between restarts. If you pick up a card, put it in here, save, it will probably go somewhere a bit odd, which I might fix at some point. But for most intents and purposes, that's fine. Now, the problem. People kept telling me that their Glover and Glover job, or Moreland's bookshop, or sometimes their followers, disappeared. And they thought it was something to do with dragging it into and out of the verb tile, but they weren't entirely sure what. So the situation is this. You pick up your Glover and Glover job, for example. You start work. You don't put any reason in the devotion slot, because fuck those guys. And when it ends, you pick up your hard-earned pay from there. And then you pick up the Glover and Glover position job, and then you put it in the work slot, because you're about to do it again, right? This is what you keep doing over and over again as you do that. But then you panic, or you change your mind, or the cat jumps up in your lap, and you click the board. And did you see what happened there? It disappeared. It didn't actually disappear. It's actually still hiding in the situation. So if I run this now, that's weird, isn't it? I've started health, but it thinks I'm starting work at Glover and Glover because the card's still in there. It's hiding in the output slot. So it didn't disappear, it was just still inside the verb, but you can't necessarily get it back, because by the time the verb cycles around and you didn't know it was in there, sometimes the verb said -1 job or something, it's gone. And certainly, because the output bit, the bit where we are now, of the verb, still lets time count down, by the time you come around, it says you've been demoted because the Glover and Glover job decays over time. So that was causing the problem, and I'm going to do something in the other window now with some code I wrote that just says it's compiling the code again. Instead of whenever you pick something up from a location in the game, it creates something called a homing angel, because I made my code like a lunatic that remembers the location of it. If you pick it up from anywhere else, it still creates a homing angel for it. If you... Oh, Glover and Glover. If you do what we've been doing, that was causing cars to disappear, if you do your Glover and Glover job, and you take the funds away, and you pick up Glover and Glover, and you put it back in, it didn't create a homing angel when I picked it up from the output sphere, because the output sphere, so the output area of the verb doesn't do that anymore. So if I put it back in here, but then close it, it goes back to the table, and it hasn't disappeared. And as soon as I upload this patch, people stop sending me plaintive things saying there's this card that was a horrible job in the game that's supposed to be miserable, but now it's gone. I'm even more miserable. There we go. It's Friday evening. I'll just be working tomorrow, so there may be more of these. We'll see. Have a spooky like and subscribe and a magnificent evening. Thank you. Good night.